work for a modest man, and more on that in a moment. He would want me to begin this way. Chuck Todd, I love you. And Andrea Mitchell, you're my idol too. To the fellow honorees tonight, Mr. Bohannon, long-time listener, first-time dinner partner. And congratulations to you. Marcy, if you were news director at KY3 in Springfield in 1982, where I spent a day off in the lobby unable to get my tape screened, I wanted to work at KY3 in Springfield, Missouri, more than I've ever wanted to work anywhere else. I was working in Joplin, and I took a day off, and I drove to Springfield, and I entered the lobby at 9 a.m. and exited the lobby with my tape in hand at 5 p.m. and decided on the spot that I had failed at television. Moved east, series of odd jobs, ended up, thanks to a terrific woman here in Washington at Channel 5 named Betty Endicott, getting hired. She played the role I wanted KY3 in Springfield, Missouri to play. Marcy, I love you too. I didn't always, but... and to dear Martha, who we all do truly love and admire, I realized watching tonight, while I can't give you what I have in my pocket from our mutual friend, General Campbell, I carry this every day. He gave this to me after a particularly sporty day in Iraq. And I've had it, I've turned around on a lot of airplane seats and the seat of my car to see it sitting there. It slipped out of my pocket, but every time it calls me back. And honest to God, it's the only thing I have with me every day. It's as good a good luck charm and talisman as I've ever known. And if you knew our mutual friend, General Campbell, you'd know the import of it. So congratulations. So I'm here to talk about Steve Capus. And I'm going to do this a little backwards. I would like to play the This Is Your Life video first, and not knowing what they chose of our remarks, fill in whatever blanks exist between the time the tape ends, the thunderous applause die down, and we decide to let you all go home to your lives and your families. And so, thanks to videotape, digital journalism, and whatever they are calling the letters that follow RTN these days. Here is the story of my friend and my supervisor, Steve Capus. I was covering New Jersey for WCAU Channel 10 in Philadelphia. I was working out of a live truck all day. I would finish my story for the 6th, and I needed to phone in the anchor lead-in, how to introduce my work, and the producer assigned to me was Steve Capus. We probably worked together 18 months in that capacity, and, you know, life moves on.
In the mid-1980s, we were approached by this bright young man. He knew a lot about Philadelphia. Every question we asked him, everything we talked to him about had a certainty, had a brightness to it. And we thought, this is the guy we needed. So we brought in Steve Capus.
I did recognize that he had a very firm idea of what each show and each story should be. And he was very intent on getting at the truth and making sure that everything was accurate, and he was really relentless.
We were great believers in multitasking. In addition to our newsroom jobs, Steve and I were both responsible for the newsroom computer systems. He was the main focal point for the newscasts. He was the one everybody looked to for advice, for suggestions. He gave them tips on how to do things.
And he also, as a writer, was able to really nail the essence of what motivated people to watch a newscast.
He was everything that makes you say, wow, I like being on this cast.
We were very lucky, I thought, to have gotten the interest of an executive producer out of Philly to come here to Charlotte. Nightside was a long, hard program to do, and even though it was a show that never received any critical acclaim, it was highly important. He showed and demonstrated there the high level of journalistic integrity that he does now, the commitment, the dedication to good storytelling, the importance of accuracy in all that we did.
I think Steve's contribution to the NBC News Channel was to bring a very high level of production and a very high level of writing and overall commitment to the quality of the product. It wasn't just what he did with his own hands, it was the influence he had on everybody else. We were only able to keep him a year before the Sharkies in New York figured out how good he was and hired him up to 30 Rock.
I first met Steve in 1994 when he took on the job of the executive producer of NBC News at Sunrise. Immediately upon meeting Steve, I discovered that I was lucky enough to be working with a man of great integrity, who's also kind and smart and efficient and forgiving. Because, frankly, I can't say I was that good an anchor in 1994. From 1994 all the way to today, I can tell you, I never have once doubted that I was working under a leader who I admired, whose judgment I trust, whose integrity I think raises us all.
I was covering the Clinton White House. Andy Lack, who ran the news division then, said, I'm going to start a new network, we're going to call it MSNBC, and I'd like you to do an hour in prime time. It was clear we needed somebody from the bullpen. Steve and I reconnected, and it just made sense. It was like working with any other peer or colleague.
I think the first thing that we did or worked on might have been the Silicon Valley summits when we were trying to introduce America to the impact of this new technology on our lives. And it was very helpful to have Steve's calm, steady, and yet generational vision involved in all that, because he got it.
The thing I'd say about Steve, and this was said about guys like Don Mattingly of the New York Yankees, Steve's a player's coach, and that's the highest compliment you can imagine. This isn't a guy from legal, a guy from sales. This is one of us.
When we started working together at Nightly News, we were really reinventing the broadcast. Steve stepped in, got what we wanted to do, and there was never a greater test, I think, for any executive producer than 9/11 and then the anthrax attacks on NBC Nightly News. I could not have had a better partner during all of that.
Steve was in my ear for years as executive producer. He's used to calling the shots, suggesting coverage, lining up guests, working 2 and 3 segments in advance. That's what he does. The best at it know to talk to you when you are breathing in, when you're not communicating. And the very best at it know that if we're both really good, I can be talking as I am to you while someone's talking to me. It's much better when I know that Steve is in the front deck or the back deck of the control room.
Steve has come through all these passages at NBC News, and he has succeeded at every one of them.
Steve knows that what we have to cover should not only be just the stories that are breaking, but the stories that have an impact on our human family in a deeper way.
Steve will often start with how we should play a story during the day, what side he thinks is not getting a thorough airing. He'll often give a talk about a story that is tough for us to do and is going to get us in trouble and tell us to keep going.
I think to some degree every organization is a reflection of the person who's in charge of it. I think Steve is very passionate about telling stories, very passionate about giving people the information necessary, and you see that passion inside NBC News, and I think a lot of that starts with Steve.
I think when you meet Steve, you realize he's relaxed, but he's serious enough about the subject and so knowledgeable, and the depth of his knowledge impresses everyone who meets him. So right off the bat, it sets a tone. Be expert, be caring, but don't take yourself so seriously, and that's what a great leader does. They lead by example, and they build a team.
There's nothing else he'd rather be doing. There's nothing else he probably should be doing. There have been a lot of news division presidents, but I think a lot of people here are going to turn around someday and realize that his picture belongs there on the very top row with the most durable of all time. he has always looked a little bit like Chuck Norris. There's a scene in the movie Ordinary People where the swim coach asks the very troubled Timothy Hutton, "Are you having fun out there? Because if we're not having fun, why are we doing this?" So about once a week, he's got problems I wouldn't give to a monkey on a rock. About once a week, I will call from my office to his and say, Are you having fun in there? Because if you're not having fun, there's no sense doing it. What I meant to be the takeaway from what you heard, we've got it pretty good. We're able to dress our people up. They've all showered. We could afford 2-3 tables here down front. Wasn't always the case. There should have been closed captioning on this. At one point, my company chose to do a national overnight newscast and chose to put it in Charlotte. God love them. That well-known skyline of Charlotte. And this guy gets the call for the right-hander from the bullpen and says, "I'll executive produce it," and he's always answered the bell. We've got it pretty good because a friend of ours is our boss. And what I also meant to express there at the end, nothing lasts forever. Either I'll go or he will, and we will look back knowing these were, right now, the good old days. I've worked for a lot of folks, and so has he. And so we know how good we've got it. The other thing you should know about us, we're the only 2 NASCAR fans in New York City. So, we will, on Sundays, you can ask our spouses, backstop each other depending on which of us has an active day and which of us has no discernible life and which of us is sitting there watching 4 hours of the race. And if you ever intercepted our BlackBerry communications, it could suffice for a Homeland script because it'll read 4 to go, 88 looks good, caution. And we know perfectly well what we're saying. One of us will be at the store or engaging in some fun activity, and we're getting these updates, and that's the role we play for each other. If you flew from New York to Los Angeles next to my modest friend, you would not learn that you were seated for 4 hours next to a guy who you look around and realize is the dean of the news division presidents and runs the most successful news division around the globe. You would learn a few things about him, that he is a very proud Philadelphian, and despite all of our attempts to the contrary, is a huge fan of the Phillies, Flyers, and Eagles. You have a team here locally, NFL team? It's been very tough on him watching my world champion New York Giants march to victory this past season. Thank you very much. And it had me thinking tonight of seeing Andy on the bus. There is a bus from the Port Authority to Giants Stadium. One wouldn't think of driving to Giants Stadium. You take the bus if you love the Giants. Andy loves the Giants. Steve doesn't, but it's something we're working on. Yes, he loves the First Amendment, but he loves a lot of things. He loves his family. I suspect you'll hear that tonight. He loves his NBC News family. And as I say, and the lingering thought I'd like to leave you with, under Steve Capus, my friend and my news division president, we know we've got it pretty good. Good Steve Capus.
Appreciate that, Brian. It's hard to believe it's been 26 years since WCAU, and that was amazing. Thank you so much, I think. I also want to give my sincere thanks to RTDNF for your ongoing commitment to protect the First Amendment rights and promote ethical journalism in newsrooms across the country. This organization has been a great partner to NBC News over the years and to all of us. And we're proud to join you here once again this evening. I stand here on behalf of my colleagues down here in the front row from NBC News, also some of the great NBC affiliates and station groups who are here tonight. It's really great to see everybody, all my friends. We're here because this award represents so much to us in our profession as we exercise the First Amendment every single day, upholding the rights of citizens, keeping them informed, and doing it responsibly. And to be able to stand here with Martha, and with Jim, my friend Marcy, and of course the great Mr. Rooney, it's indeed a true honor. I was speaking with many of you here tonight, and everybody always says the same thing. In every single newsroom where I've ever worked, from CAU on, you walk in and everybody says, you know, if you just worked here about 2 years ago, that was the really good time. Every place works. They say the same thing. It was really great back then. It sucks now, but it's really good. Those were the golden years. And outside of the business, our friend Tom Brokaw writes books about the greatest generation. It seems there's always this constant nostalgia for the golden era. And indeed, there were groundbreaking and foundational events and people like Andy Rooney who were part of the greatest generation. But I'd like to propose an alternative to that rear view mirror mindset. Tonight, let's think about all the heroes who are in uniform, who are currently serving our country in places like Afghanistan. At the same time, let's think about all the journalists, Martha, and the producers who are out there reporting and fully dedicating themselves to getting the story right. The decisions and the actions that define those previous generations are still happening today. So while we're here tonight, let's think about this as a time to lead our business into a new golden era. As journalists, it is our duty to shine a light on the dark recesses of government and business and look into how decisions are made, how money's spent, and who is really benefiting and who isn't. In an election year, it's especially critical that we pay attention to every detail, every nuance of these campaigns and the promises made by those who are running for office. It's so important that our reporting is thorough and accurate so that our audiences understand exactly who and what they're voting for come this November. And exercising the First Amendment doesn't just mean looking at what goes on within our borders, but equally important is what goes on outside of them. We must look closely at what is being done in our name in foreign arenas, both in peace and in conflict. At NBC News, we do not take our foreign coverage lightly. We do indeed invest in it, and we know there are great risks in sending our people overseas into areas where there is no such thing as press freedom or the safety that we enjoy inside the United States. Every time we deploy a team, we do it understanding the responsibility we have to ensure the safety of our colleagues and also the responsibility to our viewers. And with that responsibility of informing the public, it's not just what you report, but it's how you do it. It must be accurate, even-handed, and indeed ethical. In the news business, we're often presented with options for shortcuts for taking advantage of a situation for the benefit of breaking news first. And let's be honest, it is exciting to get exclusive information or the first interview, but under no circumstances is it worth the cost of breaking public trust. Trust is what news organizations live and die by, and it takes an unwavering commitment from every employee to keep that trust alive. Last fall, we witnessed a frightening example of a news organization allegedly abusing the privacy rights of citizens in order to access information on their cell phones, of all things. Regardless of how this all went down, who was truly at fault, it's a scary example of what can happen when you lose sight of ethical journalism and the importance of trust. Recently, we did something that many in our profession, and indeed some of you in this room, thought was absolutely crazy. We decided to launch a new primetime news magazine, Rock Center with Brian Williams. In 5 short months, we've showcased original reporting from Brian and Ted Koppel and Meredith Vieira and Harry Smith, Kate Snow, Richard Engel, and so many others. This has not been a ratings play. Believe me, it has not been a ratings play. It's a commitment in something else. It's our attempt to make a commitment to journalism that matters at this incredibly important moment in history. That is what it means to be a leading news organization in 2012 and beyond. Grow, invest in quality, don't be cheap, stay relevant for your evolving audience and lead by example, and take this responsibility that I talked about tonight seriously. In order to cover all of the important issues out there today, we need access and support from all sides of the aisles and all levels of leadership. We cannot report on what happens behind closed doors, and so it's critical that we continue to push to preserve and expand access to information, public records, data, and all levels of government. So let's continue to strive to protect all aspects of the First Amendment and to continue to hold the bar high for our industry, much as we're doing here tonight. I'd like to congratulate the fellow honorees and thank all of you for all of your hard work to uphold the rights of our citizens and the integrity of this profession. It is a worthy profession and is a true calling. Thank you very much.